All right,
Okay.
Kylie. So let's start with the 90s. What do you have for us today?
All right. So today I am going to be talking about the hit television show All That. All That is basically a kid's version of SNL. IMDb describes it as a zany sketch comedy featuring many wacky characters hosted for kids and by kids. There have been a few resurgences of the show, but the original one that aired in the 90s is unmatched, and it was filled with impeccable talent, as at least coming from me.
Totally.
It first aired in 1994 on Nickelodeon, and it was part of a true era that Nickelodeon was at the time. So my resources for today are IMDb, Wikipedia, of course, NickelodeonFandom.com, YouTube, and good old Paramount Plus. So, in the 80s, there was a Canadian teen sketch comedy show called You Can't Do That on Television. This eventually and early on made its way to the United States, and it was a huge hit. It was canceled in 1990, and at this point, Nickelodeon knew they needed sketch comedy to keep going on strong with the network. So in 1992, they released a comedy show called Roadhouse. Once doing this, Nickelodeon execs talked to the producers, Mike Tollin and Brian Robbins, who now, by the way, is the CEO of Paramount Pictures. So in this time, he's worked his way all the way to the top. Anyway, Nickelodeon had asked them to come up with another sketch comedy show that would be a kid's version of Saturday Night Live, and they got right to work. Auditions were held to cast the funniest kids for this new show. Through auditions, Kenan Thompson, Kel Mitchell, Elisa Reyes, Katrina Johnson, and Josh Server were casted for the show. Angelique Bates was also casted through auditions after doing an impression of Steve Urkel. And additionally, Lori Beth Denberg, one of my favorites, was casted after being discovered at a drama competition. And this was back in the day where television shows were often filmed in front of live studio audiences. Nickelodeon was known for their studios being located in Orlando, Florida. Fun
Shout
fact,
out.
that's where Amber and I met. We both lived there. So now that they had their cast ready to go and they were recording episodes, Nickelodeon gave a preview screening of their new show, All That, on April 16th, 1994. It was a huge hit, and the show officially began airing on December 24th after Nickelodeon canceled Roadhouse. The R&B group, legendary TLC, performed the theme song for All That and gave music performances at the end of 2 out of the first 3 episodes. And there was a musical act at the end of each episode, much like on SNL. Unfortunately, if you go back and watch them now on streaming, they have to cut out those because they don't have the copyright to the songs. But I
What?
remember watching them on Nickelodeon back in the day, and they were awesome. But yeah. And additionally, they had a skit called Vital Information, which modeled after the SNL weekly update that still goes on today. In 1996, Angelique Bates left the show, and a little girl named Amanda Bynes entered. In 1997, more changes came about as Katrina Johnson and Elisa Reyes left the show, and Danny Tamborelli, Leon Frierson, and Christy Knowings joined the cast. In 1998, Lori Beth left, and Nick Cannon came on. We all know Nick Cannon, him
Of
and
course.
his 12 children. 1999 was when the majority of the cast left, and they got their own gigs with the network. And this generation of All That ends in the year 2000. So while they had the SNL layout, All That held its own in terms of variants of skits enjoyed by children all over the United States. So I wanted to list some of the more notable sketches of the show. So they had Dolmont Junior High. It was a skit about kids going through the daily struggles as a middle school student in a school where weird things tend to happen due to peculiar faculty played by the kids. One of my favorites is Everyday French with Pierre Escargot. This one's where Kenan is in a bathtub wearing a raincoat, and he's giving like French lessons that are just very random statements. And I just remember Kenan's goofy smile. It's hilarious throughout the whole skit. There's also the USS Spaceship. This was a spoof of Star Trek. They were in a spaceship. Amanda Bynes is the captain of the ship, and she's like acting very childish, like crying when she doesn't get her way. There's the Loud Librarian, which was played by Lori Beth. She was always doing crazy things that were extremely loud in her library. And like she would do karate or like make bacon, talking on the phone. And I remember even had a bullfight at one point.
Oh my
So
God.
that one was just wild. I loved Lori Beth. She was hilarious. Then we had The Adventures of Super Dude. And I did not remember this one until I went back and started watching it again. And I saw the title Super Dude versus the Milkman. And I immediately remembered that one. And then Ask Ashley was my favorite. Do you remember that one?
I think so, yeah. Like the column. Yes.
Yes. So Amanda Bynes is in her bedroom and she gets letters in from fans asking for advice. And she'd start out all sweet, but then she'd like get into her answer and she'd be like yelling and calling them idiots and stuff. I love that one so much.
Yes. That one's one of my favorites.
Oh, yes, me too. That is like my top. The cast was really made up of some impeccable talent that went on to do, and it still is doing some incredible things. So I wanted to take the time to highlight the cast because they've gone on to great success, like a lot of them. So let's start with Kenan Thompson. I feel like Kenan has gone in the route most of us would expect the cast of all that to go. So Kenan had multiple projects going on around the time that all that aired. He also did some Disney movies. He did Heavyweights, my family favorite movie. He also did The Mighty Ducks. So he was on both major children's programming networks at that time. Pretty impressive. And
Yeah, and I
after
guess
all
I
that,
didn't
he
know
went
that.
on. I don't think I didn't register that as a kid, but
Right.
looking back, it's like, wow, yeah, he was kind of everywhere.
Yeah, totally.
After all that, he went on to do Kenan and Kel with his co-star Kel Mitchell. We'll dive into that in a little bit after I'm done with Kenan, so we'll table this for now. Now, his resume is so extensive, I don't have time to read off every single credit on his IMDb, so I'm just going to do a quick highlight reel. Okay, so he does some smaller roles here and there, and then he gets his big movie break as the lead in Fat Albert. After that, he continues with some smaller roles here and there, working more into the adult targeted audience and growing away from the children's programming, which is natural as, he's an adult by this time. Then we find Mr. Thompson on the one and only Saturday Night Live. So he's gone full circle here. And yeah, I always thought that was so cool to see him go from all that to finally making it to SNL. Then he gets his own sitcom titled, wait for it, Kenan. So he's made up, fam. Mic drop, nothing else for him to do. I'm sure there's more for him to do, but if he wanted to retire today, I feel like he's completed his career. All right, so I need to be mindful of the time here, so we'll go ahead and move on to Kel Mitchell. So Kenan and Kel had real chemistry when it came to the comedy, which is why they were given their own spin-off. And this also led to a huge movie, Good Burger. And shout out, Good Burger 2 just came out too. So if you're wanting to watch that, it's on Paramount Plus.
Oh.
And the duo stars as the leads. Kel gave a phenomenal performance in this movie with his legendary quote, also from the skit in the show, "Welcome to the Good Burger, home of the Good Burger. Can I take your order?"
Ah, yes.
He also starred in the feature film Rocky and Bullwinkle alongside Kenan. And there was a hoax at one point about him passing away,
Oh my god.
which is weird because according to his IMDb, he has stayed working. But he's done some guest starring and a lot of voice acting, which honestly a lot of people are getting into.
Mhm.
Another great cast member, frankly, I feel is underrated, was Lori Beth Denberg. She was also in Good Burger, and after all that, she starred in The Steve Harvey Show. She was in 67 episodes. And she's been doing some other projects here and there,
Wow.
including Dodgeball and Hollywood Darlings, which was, I don't know what network that was on, but it had Beverly Mitchell, Jodie Sweetin, and Christine Lakin from Step by Step. So it's kind of like, it was
Oh,
like a mockumentary type show, I think, like kind of like The Office, but it's like, former 90s stars.
that's kinda cool. Now I wanna
Danny
go find that because 'cause I'm
Tamborelli.
curious.
Yeah, I tried to watch it. It was okay.
Okay. Okay, so I
But
shouldn't be
it's
like
interesting to seeing them.
okay, so I won't get my hopes up about it then.
Yeah. It's okay. I'll say that. Danny Tamborelli was another popular cast member, and before even getting that role, he had built a career for himself. He did 11 episodes of a show called Ryan's Hope, and he played Jackie in 9 episodes of, wait for the throwback, The Babysitter's Club.
Wow. I didn't know that was a show. I thought it was just a book series. So that's interesting.
You've
Yeah.
never seen it?
No, I just read
Oh
the
my gosh.
books.
It might be on Netflix, and if it is still on there, I'm sending it to you. I used to
Bet.
watch that all the time.
Wait, I have every
It
streaming
was good.
service, so wherever it is, just send it to me. I probably have the streaming
Yeah,
service.
yeah. Look it up. And there was a movie too.
Wait.
I have to say, Claudia was my favorite babysitter.
Oh, yeah, I love Claudia. I remember her from the books. That's one thing. I read the books. I was a Scholastic Book Fair girly, so I bought those books when I could get my money to the Scholastic Book Fair.
She always had the chicest earrings. I loved her. So Danny also starred in The Adventures of Pete and Pete. He played little Pete Wrigley. And around the time of that, he too was in the Mighty Ducks. And
Go off.
after all that, he's done some screen acting and a handful of voice acting, including Grand Theft Auto, the video games.
I don't know why that makes me
Go off,
laugh.
King. Elisa Reyes was in the first 3 seasons and returned to the show with Lori Beth for its most recent reboot in 2020. Elisa has had a versatile career post all that. She moved on to starring in a show called One World about foster kids living under one roof, coming from all sorts of backgrounds. And she's even been in a handful of soap operas, including One Life to Live and Passions. Those, from what I've heard, are intense to film because they are episodes every day. So the fact that she can do some serious drama and sketch comedy is pretty impressive.
Yeah, that's hard to do both of those types of things. Usually, like, it's hard to be able to differentiate, like, comedy versus like serious dramatic
Right.
roles. So the fact that she can do both is crazy. That's awesome.
Right. Talent. All right. Amanda Bynes is a well known name. She really stood out on the show because she was the youngest, but she carried her own when it came to providing laughs. So when all that was canceled, Nickelodeon gave her her very own sketch comedy show, The Amanda Show. And that
Yeah.
really put Amanda in the top spot. She moved on to do the movie Big Fat Liar with Frankie Muniz, who was the child actor to be working with at the time.
Oh yeah.
Then she started moving into doing girly teeny bopper movies, giving Queen Hilary Duff a run for her money. She did What a Girl Wants, and of course the iconic cult classic, She's the Man, where she really got to display her comedic talent. Then she was actually casted as a lead in the sitcom What I Like About You alongside Jenny Garth as her sister. And she's also known for her roles in Hairspray, Sydney White, and Easy A. And she studied fashion at my dream school, the Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandising, aka FITM, where Lauren Conrad went as well.
Shout out Fitum.
I wanted to go there for interior design, not fashion. I'm not basic, guys, but that was my dream school. Okay, and I saved this one for last because I feel like him and Kenan are the biggest names, which is saying a lot because a lot of these names are massive. But Mr. Nick Cannon, I have to say his IMDb page took a minute for me to figure out how to even navigate through it to find his acting credits because he does a lot of producing. That man stays working, which it's a no wonder how he can afford 12 kids because he has so many credits. Most famous these days for being a father of 12, I feel like, but he is a career man too. Nick Cannon actually came onto the cast a little bit later in the game, but did just a great job in his skits. I vaguely remember being a little kid and noticing him being new, but I do remember like him being introduced. And then he was hosting Snick, which was the Saturday Night Nick programming on Nickelodeon. And that was targeted towards tweens. And later they changed the name to Teen Nick and had it on Sundays. Do you remember that?
Yes, I was gonna say you literally
Like
like
the Snick
unlocked a
House?
memory. Yes.
Yeah. And with that, he got his own sketch comedy spinoff, The Nick Cannon Show, that was on Snick. He also debuted his rap career, doing a song with Lil Romeo and 3LW called Parents Just Don't Understand, which was actually a cover of The Fresh Prince and DJ Jazzy Jeff's version.
That doesn't
Do you
surprise
remember
me.
that music video?
I don't, but this honestly, what my comment was going to be, this is so Will Smith of him because Will Smith's rap career was so clean. So like I was gonna say it, so
Literally, it was a remake of that song.
so funny.
He started starring in teen films when he did Drumline and Love Don't Cost a Thing. He's done so much. I can't even put it together, but after these films, he stuck with his Viacom family. For those who don't know, Nickelodeon is under an umbrella network, Viacom. And he went over to MTV, which is under the same umbrella, and created the improv show Nick Cannon's Wild and Out. He has previously hosted on America's Got Talent, and now you can catch him hosting The Masked Singer. And by the way, Wild and Out is still up and running, and that has been on forever because I think I was a freshman in high school when that first started.
Yeah. I didn't know it was still running.
So-
I know they play it on MTV because it was an MTV show, but I didn't know it was still like new episodes. So that's interesting.
Yeah. All that resulted in many spin-off shows for their cast, including Kenan and Kel. So I'm going to run through because all that kind of launched this Nickelodeon multiverse. And I may not even go as deep as it can go because I got old and stopped watching Nickelodeon, but I'm going to go as far as I can. So all that resulted in many spin-off shows for their cast. We have Kenan and Kel for Kenan Thompson and Kel Mitchell. Nick Cannon hosted the Snick and got the Nick Cannon Show. And of course, Miss Amanda got the Amanda Show. So these were all rightfully given to them. Then we had the Amanda Show develop into its own little universe, and it basically took over for all that in the time before it was rebooted.
Mm-hmm.
At first, it was mainly Amanda with side characters, but eventually the side characters became more familiar with the audience, and we started loving them as well as the fans. So we got Drake Bell and Josh Peck becoming the most popular, and they were a dynamic duo, really, in the show. And eventually, they were given their own show titled Drake and Josh. And Drake and Josh was a huge show, one of the most watched series on the Nickelodeon network. It went for 4 seasons, and it introduced a new child actor, Miranda Cosgrove, who played their little sister, Megan Parker. And Miranda was a comedic genius when it came to this character. I look back now because you see her in the public, either interviews or even what I'm going to get into in a second here. She seems like a sweetheart, but Megan was so devious, and you see that and you're like, holy crap, she was probably like 7 or 8 years old, and she was an incredible actress.
You're right. Yeah, because her actual personality as a person seems very sweet, very just, soft, whereas Megan was the exact opposite.
Yeah.
She was a demon.
She's evil. Yes, a demon is a good word for it. So she really played into Megan well.
Yeah, I agree.
But yeah, once Drake and Josh began to fall off, Miranda was given her own show, iCarly. iCarly was pretty successful in itself, and it presented competition for Nickelodeon's rival network, the Disney Channel, as their peak of, Hannah Montana, Wizards of Waverly Place era was dying down. So Carly lived with her brother Spencer, played by Jerry Trainer, who also played Crazy Steve on Drake and Josh.
Oh my god.
And she ran... Cock-a-doodle-doo, the cow goes boo.
He was so good. Come on, Dora. I don't have the map. You do. He was so good.
That was great. So in iCarly, she's running this webcam show with her friends Freddie and Sam, and this is before, this is the normal in our society with YouTube and everything, so this was like top notch back then. But yeah, Sam was played by child actress Jeanette McCurdy. And so we're going to pause here on that side because we have to go off of this family tree for a bit to continue the multiverse. So around the same time as Drake and Josh, there was a little show called Zoey. Zoey.
It's okay.
There was a show called Zoey 101. Did I say that right this time?
You did. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. This starred the little sister of icon and our queen, Britney Spears, who was actually part of the second generation cast of all that. And in this second season, a child actor named Victoria Justice was added to the cast. Eventually, Victoria was given her own show, Victorious, and it was about a group of teens attending a performing arts school in Hollywood and working on their crafts to eventually become famous. And the most notable actress to come out of this show was a young Ariana Grande, who played Kat. So iCarly and Victorious had crossover episodes, and this was a really big deal for Nickelodeon at the time kind of copying Disney Channel with their crossover episodes. But this eventually led them to creating the spin-off of both shows, and they created Sam and Cat. So that's where I'm going to end it. I'm not sure if there's more to this web, but this web started in the 90s and ended in the 2010s. So, in conclusion, what a legacy for the original All That has left for the network. And also the amount of careers that have been able to start because of it.
That's wild. No, like it's fun to see how it evolved from All That to all these other shows and how it just like spanned out, because I didn't realize it all spanned quite literally from All That. It's crazy.
Yeah, really, like it launched so many careers, and we went from sketch comedy to like
Scripted
sitcoms.
shows.
So,
yeah, scripted sitcom. It's crazy.
The development. But yeah, so that is what I have this week on All That.